Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 126, Slavery of the Mind. Yes, we've talked about mind control, brainwashing, propaganda before, but we have some more things to add to that have come through. And we also have lovely bonus content clearing of all of these things. We haven't done something like this for a while. So if you're interested, please listen into the episode and enjoy the bonus content afterward. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode.
You are listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Make the most of it. This is Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 126, Slavery of the Mind. And it's not the first time that I have talked about the mind. I started Season 6 with, I believe, 2 episodes called The Battle for Minds, Part 1 and 2. We've talked about brainwashing. We've talked about mind control. We've talked about propaganda, all of those types of topics. And that's been coming up a lot for me recently. So I think it's time for another episode on this topic. And we're just going to see what comes through and weave that in with some experiences that I recently had and some other things that have been dropping in. So, are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your guidance, your presence, your love and support through this episode. Please allow me to be a perfect and clear channel and communicator for the divine. Please help me to know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. So I guess I will start out this episode with an experience I had a few days ago. I was in Los Angeles and I was going on a walk down Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood area. And I'd never been up in that area before, never been in that neighborhood. That's one of the reasons I wanted to go up there and just explore, check it out. Beverly Hills, Hollywood. I'd never seen those parts of LA. And if you're used to LA, you know all this already, and none of this is a surprise. If you're not, this was my experience walking down the street, walking down Sunset Boulevard. And it was the morning. It was maybe like 7 or 8 in the morning. I was walking, and first of all, there's a lot of homeless people. And, that could be a whole episode. It could be a whole season on its own, right? And that, spiritually, why are people homeless? Is that their karma? Is that their mission? Are some homeless people enlightened and actually blessing us when we walk by them? Are many of them actually possessed under the influence of drugs, alcohol, etc.? There's all this stuff. So I'm not going to get into the mechanics of homelessness and tell you what to think about it. I'm just describing the scene. Lots of homeless people, lots of smells from humans on the sidewalk. You can guess what I mean by that. And lots of rainbows, was Pride season. So lots of pride flags and pride flags, including the trans flag, everywhere. And there were several billboards. It is Hollywood after all, and I guess that's a normal thing there. I'm not used to seeing billboards for movies where I live or where I've been recently, but it's a big thing in LA, which totally makes sense. Hollywood, right? So I was walking and just having these interesting sensations, and the energy up there was interesting. You know, it's hard for me. I don't even want to put a label on it because that's difficult, but I guess I'm going to get there in the end of my little story here. I saw one billboard or a couple billboards for the show Yellow Jackets. Admittedly, I have not seen this TV series. I've heard about it. To me, it sounds like a female version of Lord of the Flies. I don't really have interest in watching stuff like that, but that's me. And there's no judgment on a level, right? And I also saw 2 billboards talking about how the Netflix series Dahmer is a masterpiece or whatever they had on those billboards, and it was advertising Dahmer. And I just had this interesting moment of, am I in hell? That was the thought that came in my mind. Am I in hell? Because I am looking at things that are surrounding me. And I think it was the Dahmer billboards that set me off onto that, but it didn't feel great walking on that road at that time. It didn't smell great walking on that road at that time. And I'm looking up and I'm seeing billboards advertising the show about a serial killer pedophile. So I just had this brief moment of, am I in hell? And that passed. And of course, you know, that was just a moment. But I've been thinking about the mind a lot lately. And this has probably come across on the episodes, but we are constantly bombarded by all types of propaganda and marketing and news that they want us to hear and TV shows and movies that they want us to hear and see. And that's not everything that's in the world, right? There's a lot more in the world. And a lot of what we see and hear about is because the powers that be want us to see and hear about those things. And that's becoming more and more apparent. And it's interesting. I wonder the extent to which this has changed since I've been born, right? I was born in 86. And now those who are born have screens from the second they're born. I've seen babies watching screens and playing with phones, and we all have, you know. And again, it sounds like I have judgment in my voice, and I probably do on a human level. On a soul level, I don't. It just is what it is. But what I'm getting at here is now, I can't speak for exactly when I was born, although I'm sure it was big too, but now, from the moment we're born, we're shown things, screens with different messaging, radio with different messaging, TV shows, movies with different messaging, marketing. And we're also, lately it seems, bombarded with these campaigns to do a certain thing or believe a certain thing or support a certain thing or don't support a certain thing, depending on what it is, right? I'm going to add a word, a phrase to the mix that you may or may not have heard before called mass formation. Mass formation, which is essentially a type of widespread public hypnosis. You can look this up. Mass formation. And the idea is that somehow, some way, the powers that be, or a corporation, or the government, or whoever has the power, the media systems, whoever has the power to push an agenda, will do that in such a way that it's a form of mass hypnosis. Some might call that mind control because it's non-consensual. No one's saying, hey, we're going to do this and push this onto you, and nobody's consenting to that, right? So in some form that might be brainwashing because you haven't, asked for it. At least with hypnosis, a lot of time you're going to a hypnotist, right? You're asking to be hypnotized on some level. It's not happening to you, you're asking for it. And maybe this has been happening all along. I think on some level it has. You think of World War II and all the propaganda about the war effort and contributing and Rosie the Riveter and, ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country, right? Like all of these examples, that's just one example. So on some level, this has been happening the whole time. And maybe it's just becoming more apparent now, or maybe it's just becoming more apparent to me now. Maybe you're listening to this like, yeah, I've known this forever. And I've realized it for the last couple years here, but is it becoming more blatant as I'm awakening more, as we are awakening more, as we raise our level of consciousness, or is it actually becoming more prevalent, more obvious, more desperate? And here's the crux of what I'm getting at with this episode here. Why does it always seem to be something that is maybe negatively skewed, not positive? Like the outcome's not positive? Why is it something that we really, truly maybe don't know anything about? We're just, one day there's, American flags, and the next day there's Ukrainian flags everywhere. And we're expected to support a war, right? A war. No one's talking about peace. It was like night and day, wake up, and we are being encouraged to support an actual war where people are actually dying on both sides. And like, did anyone think about that? Why isn't anyone talking about peace? So, one day American flags, the next day Ukrainian flags. One day American flags, the next day pride flags everywhere instead of country flags. Now, that might sound to you like a very conservative statement, right? I am queer and non-binary, and I have been my whole life. I'm a member of that community in more ways than one. But I don't see why it needs to be plastered everywhere. I don't see that. In my lifetime, I have had the privilege, and I'm really grateful and honored that I got to see this transformation of being young and experiencing around me before I even realized that I was queer, because I didn't think that I was allowed to be. I didn't think that was an option, so I didn't realize until later, although I definitely was. Feeling that that was, and knowing that that was something to hide, something not to be super proud of, something that many people would have been uncomfortable with in the world. And then seeing this transformation towards acceptance of, like, much more widespread acceptance of LGBT people, right? People who are not straight. And now we have gone further than that and are seeing widespread acceptance and almost promotion of non-cisgendered people. So trans people, non-binary people. And those two things are not the same. This is not going to be a lesson on LGBT rights and terms, and I'm probably going to get a lot of, pushback on this episode. But I'm really, really grateful for the acceptance that has happened for these communities throughout the course of my life. I'm super grateful. Most of that stuff needed to happen. We needed acceptance. We needed to be able to get married if we so choose, just like every other human. Adult consensual relationships. I want to stress that. Adult consensual relationships, right? If you want to get married, go ahead. If you want to wear whatever you want to wear, go wear it. All right? I'm a proud member of this community. I don't feel any shame about that. But when all the major corporations of the world take up this cause, or at least seemingly take up this cause, you're no longer part of the minority. You're no longer a group that's actively being oppressed when Google and Apple and all kinds of banks and really truly large organizations that help to run the world, Disney, Target, when these organizations are with you and supporting you, you're not really a minority. You're not in an overt and active and big way being marginalized anymore. You're not being marginalized. But this goes back to what I'm saying about slavery of the mind. That's the title of this episode. Slavery of the mind. It's almost as though we are being bombarded by symbols, by flags, by colors, by phrases in order to make us think a certain way and believe a certain thing and support certain things, right? That's fairly obvious. I think anyone listening can agree with that. But is that not some form of slavery of your mind? Without being given the opportunities to see the other options available, or indeed the other side of the story, or any other side of any story, anything going on, you're not really offered a choice to decide what you believe, what you think. And a lot of people are really having to dig to find all the different perspectives and views on any given topic. And with freedom of speech being in our Constitution, it doesn't seem like all the powers that be pushing one thing, whether that is supporting Ukraine in this actual war, taking a substance through a needle, or not being able to go to your job, needing to, and this one's difficult for me because I'm a part of this community, but even needing to have to openly support and celebrate the LGBT community. And so this goes back to this idea of mass formation, this hugely public group hypnosis of a country to believe and support certain things. And it's interesting. After that evening, I had this huge desire to go and watch The Matrix again, which is one of my favorite movies and means more to me every time I watch it, because I just had that moment of feeling like I was part of something. I was in something that was so almost dystopian, the way that The Matrix is. And the reality in The Matrix is super dystopian to all of us, right? And there's a line in there shortly after Neo takes the red pill when he's learning about how this world works, that is to the effect of not all these people are ready to wake up, or maybe most of these people aren't ready to wake up to the reality of what the truth about their situation is. I don't think that I'm having any particular answers or solutions to what seems like this mass formation being pushed in not only our country, but around the world, whether it's any of the, and you can, all you have to do is look at the headlines. Whatever the headlines are, that's what's trying to be pushed, right? I don't care what it is. And I don't personally have a hardcore feeling towards or against most of this stuff. In fact, one of my practices at this point in my evolution is to strive for neutrality. And actually, the next episode is going to be about that. So please don't misunderstand and think that I am necessarily for or against any of these topics that I've brought up. I'm using them as examples. Any headline that you see or anything you hear about going on in the country, the world, is on some level because the powers that be want us to hear about those things, but there's so many other things that we don't hear about that are maybe powerful and positive and would help us to actually grow and would help us to think for ourselves and to think critically, or to help someone or to help another country, or for us to become more peaceful or more self-sufficient, energy sufficient, anything, right? There's so many things going on in the world that we just don't hear about. But right now, the top several headlines have to do with the Ukraine, Trump, climate change, and then whatever other usually negative or usually fear-based or fear-promoting headline is of the day. A few years ago, it was vaccines. A few years ago, it was COVID, masks, staying inside, forced isolation. All of this, it's not like there wasn't other things going on. And why do they always focus on something that's negative or violent or hate? We don't want you to like this person. We do want you to support this country and send billions of dollars there, even though we're not voting for that. We do want you to inject this substance into your body, even though it has not been studied and we don't know its long-term effects, or its short-term effects for that matter. But what about everything else? How do we break out of this? How do we break out of what I am calling in this episode slavery of the mind? There's several things that I have done for myself, and I don't want to push it onto anybody else. The problem with being caught in mass formation and group hypnosis or propaganda or mind control or brainwashing is that you don't know that you're in it until you do. And then you see it everywhere. And once you see it everywhere, it's really tough to unsee, if not impossible to unsee. And so, for me, one thing I did was get off social media a couple years ago, and I have not looked back from that. I had also stopped watching mainstream media news sources to hear what was going on in the world because it was just all the same. And it wasn't because of any really ideological thing or politically based thing. For me, I just really wanted to see the positive news in the world. What is the good news? What is something that was enlivening and positive and happy that's happening? Because of course there's those things in the world, but we seem to be only pushed to see negativity and fear. Why? Why is that? There are very specific and calculated reasons for that I'm not going to go into, but there's a reason for that, right? And so, and before I forget to mention this, later that day, as I was walking, I was telling you about walking down Sunset Boulevard. Later that day, I was driving back, I think in an Uber, or one of my friends was bringing me back to where I was staying. And I saw another billboard for, I don't even know what it was. I'm assuming it was a TV show. or a movie. Maybe one of you will know, but it was the picture of this kind of feminine looking devil, kind of scary looking. And the words were, "Welcome to hell, LA." And it just was like, I mean, who said this stuff can't be funny and ironic, right? It was like my angels being like, yeah, look, you thought you were in hell? Look, it's saying you're in hell. Welcome to hell, LA. So that was fun and interesting. And again, I understand that it sounds, and it maybe is true that I have judgment on some of these things, but I really am trying to stay fairly neutral and fairly in an observational mode when I do these episodes and when I live my life. I'm not saying it's easy all the time because we are human. We have human emotions. We think of things in black and white, as right and wrong, as good and bad, or evil. All of these things, right? So I am human in this lifetime, and I have those feelings, and I am working on my neutrality, and we're going to get more into that in the next episode. And I'm grateful I had that experience and kind of tickled that that's the last thing I saw while I was heading back to where I was staying that night after earlier thinking, am I in hell? Then the sign was kind of like, yeah, you are. Welcome to LA. I should probably figure out what TV show that was, but it was pretty funny at that moment. I'm going to leave it there for today. Again, I offer no solutions or answers. I just wanted to bring this up and talk about it because it really does feel like, and in the Matrix, like I mentioned before, I didn't go fully into this, but they say that you are, that whole system is set up so that you become a battery for those in charge, and that it's a prison for your mind. That's what the Matrix is. It's a prison for your mind. And sometimes it feels like that, at least to me, when I'm walking around LA. But no, it's for real. It's elsewhere too. So for bonus content, I'm doing a clearing on clearing any kind of mass formation, group hypnosis, propaganda, mind clearing, brainwashing, mind control stuff. We've done this before, haven't done it recently. Join me at www.patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Sign up for any angel patron tier. You can become an angel patron of this podcast and get access to every bonus content that I've ever done and much more. We also have merch now. That's something I added as a special 5-year anniversary thing for everyone. So there's that. And thank you again for listening to this hopefully interesting, hopefully thought-provoking episode on slavery of the mind. And I will catch you next time.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. If you are ready to raise your vibration, you might enjoy our free Let's Get Meta Master Clearing. To receive the Master Clearing or to learn more about the podcast, visit letsgetmeta.com. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.